Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the final night of HBCU 107 week. Excited to have you join us today. We talk to HBCU alumni who have careers in athletics. We are also going to be spotlighting HBCUs that are located in the West. That means Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, and Louisiana. And then finally, we're going to have a special feature that focuses on programs for students that have learning challenges. We have a lot packed in tonight, so we're going to go ahead and jump right in and get started. Our first interview is actually recorded. It is between Jackson State University alumnus Wisdom Martin, who is a journalist in DC at Fox 5. He is being interviewed by Howard University student Trinity Webster Bass. The entire interview is actually much longer than what you're going to see today. It's about 20 minutes long. It has already been added to the 107's YouTube channel. But right now, we're going to have an edited version for you to listen to, get some advice, learn about his journey, and maybe think about attending Jackson State University like Wisdom did.
This segment, we have a wonderful guest with us today, Mr. Wisdom Martin, and he is a part of the Fox 5 News team as a morning anchor, and he's had much experience as a sports reporter, among other journalistic endeavors and experiences. So Mr. Martin, my first question for you is, there's so many HBCUs that we have all across the country, so many illustrious institutions. So why did you decide to attend Jackson State University?
Okay, let me see if I can give you the short version. So my mother went to Jackson State. My father went to Jackson State. My grandmother went to Jackson State when it was like one building. My uncles went to Jackson State. My daddy's brother went to Jackson State. My mom's two sisters went to Jackson State. My brother went to Jackson State. So I think you get we're a Jackson State family. And for me, since I'm from Mississippi, I grew up about an hour away from Jackson State University, and my parents went there, and both of them were teachers. They retired, but for me, the way they talked about their experience at Jackson State and how great of an experience it was in the classroom and outside of the classroom, and people that they had become because of Jackson State, then at a young age, going to football games and everything, I decided that was the place for me.
That's honestly really beautiful to hear. A long legacy of HBCUs.
Yes.
You attended Jackson State University, and I'd just like to know, how has your experience at Jackson State University prepared you for your career as a journalist?
Well, when I first got to Jackson, I knew what I wanted to do when I was in middle school. So I knew I wanted to be a journalist when I was in middle school, and I knew Jackson State had a good program. So going into the school, how it prepared me was the students that I was around and the environment that I was surrounded by, the professors, the instructors. They took care of you kind of like a family. So when I got there, one of the first things I did was got a part-time job at the radio station. Mr. McAdoo was the program director at the time, and he gave me a job at the radio station working a late night shift. It was a jazz station at the time, and I would read some news during the daytime every now and then. But that was like the training ground. And then I got my first job in television as a sophomore at Jackson State because one of my classmates named Deanna Sheffield, super smart, one of the smartest people in the entire school. She had some kind of fellowship where she was already working part-time as a reporter at the ABC station in Jackson, Mississippi, WAPT. So she was working as a reporter 2 days out of the week. And she's still in school. So she told me, she was in classroom one day, and I'll never forget this. We were in the auditorium right before class, and she was telling the guy sitting to her right about an opportunity at Channel 16. It was an entry-level opportunity to run the prompter. She didn't know if it paid any money, but she's already talked to the news director, and he was going to hire somebody based on her recommendation And it would be a good way to get your foot in the door. That's what she told him. I heard this because I walked in afterwards and I sat down to her left. So the guy told her, his response was, well, is it paying? And she says, I don't know if it's paying, but it's a great way to get your foot in the door. And he was like, well, if it's not paying, then I'm not interested. So I was like, hello, excuse me. Hey, Deanna, what'd you say? She gives me the whole spiel. And I was like, okay, what time do I need to be there? She's like, I don't know if it pays. I was like, I don't care. Because I need an opportunity to get my foot in the door. So she tells me and gives me all the particulars. And it was a wrap. All I had to do was show up at that point. I showed up, and the news director pretty much hired me on the spot. Again, this was an entry-level job running the teleprompter. That's what they read from. Back then, it was paper. You taped the paper together, and they would read it through a machine. So it was an entry-level job. He knew that I liked sports, so he said, since you like sports, you feel free to talk to the sports people and get as much information from them as possible. And that's what I did. I talked to them about how sports works on the local news level, and the camera and the editing. And I was just curious, so I wanted to know how to do everything. And that's what I did. I went in there. So I went in there. I'm still in school. After school, some days, I would go in there and just sit around and just try to absorb as much information as possible. Meanwhile, I'm taking all these classes with these great instructors back on campus now. Mr. Cunningham had worked at a newspaper as a columnist. He was one of my instructors. Kimberly Noel, who worked at an NBC station in Jackson, was one of my instructors. She was great. So I had and then the department head, Dr. Anthony, who is back at Jackson State now. All of these people teaching me all these different things, these real life experiences about what it was like working in the business. And at the same time, I was working in the business, absorbing all that information. So Jackson State prepared me by putting me in an environment that would allow me to learn hands-on and to thrive and to build relationships. Because like I said, without having that relationship with Deanna in the classroom as a classmate and the relationship with my professors, all those professors that I had at Jackson State, then I wouldn't be here.
You mentioned that you got your start doing at ABC as a entry-level position, but you're also interested in sports journalism, and you've had an extensive career in that field. So I'm just wondering if you could explain more about that, and also go into a little bit about your new book called Pass Interference: History of the Black Quarterback in the NFL.
Okay. So while I was working at Channel 16, one of the things that they wanted me to do, they started expanding. So they gave me a camera and said, go out and shoot some football games with the video camera. And so I started doing that, and I would do that on Friday night. And then I would try to, eventually I got to the point where I was turning stories. And then the following year, they gave me an assignment since they were doing this college football show. So they put me on, they said, okay, we're gonna start covering college football bigger in Mississippi. So, we've got a guy covering the SEC. We're covering Mississippi State and University of Mississippi. And then we got, back then, Jackson State was, really good in football, like they are, like they're starting to be again. So they had a guy covering Jackson State. And then Southern Mississippi was a good football team back then. So they had somebody covering that. So they needed somebody to cover this up-and-coming football team in Mississippi. Well, up-and-coming football player, Steve McNair, at Alcorn State. So they gave me the camera and said, this is going to be your assignment. You're going to cover Alcorn State. Well, Steve McNair was the quarterback, had just become the quarterback at the time, and was building his reputation and his legacy. This is before he got to the Tennessee Titans. And he had become by the time his first year was over at Alcorn State, he had become the book. It took me, I'm a little slow on the book because it took me about 30 years to write this book. And I'm not kidding, because I started writing with a piece of paper and just taking a couple of notes here and there. I interviewed a lot of quarterbacks along the way with a tape recorder over the phone. The book is called Pass Interference: The History of the Black Quarterback in the NFL. It's about the racial disparities between the black quarterbacks and the white quarterbacks, about the racial issues involving the NFL owners, teams, coaches, and the media, how they treat the black quarterbacks, how they've always treated the black quarterbacks, how black athletes are perceived as just athletic and strong and fast and big, and white athletes and quarterbacks are perceived as intelligent, persistent, and they work hard. They have to work harder. And how blacks were not given the opportunity to play quarterback because that was the position of leadership, and it was the face of the franchise, and the owners did not want black people playing those positions.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Martin, for being with us tonight. It has been a great pleasure speaking with you. So many insightful things to say, and thank you for your advice, and it's been a pleasure.
All right. My pleasure. Very much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. So as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Martin's interview is much longer. It's already on the 107th YouTube channel, so you can go watch. He has excellent advice. He has some really interesting stories about his career path, about covering Steve McNair, about coming to Washington, the actually travels that he had covering teams in California, teams in North Carolina, and then coming to Washington, D.C., where he's been for about 20 years now, and covering Michael Jordan when Michael Jordan was here, and of course, Washington football team before he branched out, and he's actually the morning news anchor on TV here now. But he got to start covering sports, and he still clearly has an affinity for it. His book will be coming out later on, I think in June. So he talks a little bit more about that as well in the interview. So go and check it out on our YouTube channel.
Dillard University is a historically black institution
that cultivates leaders who live ethically,
think and communicate precisely, and act courageously to make the world a better place.
This is our mission. We are Dillard University.
All right, throughout the evening, we're going to be highlighting some HBCU sports legends. Our first legend that we're highlighting this evening is Clarence Big House Gaines, who graduated from Morgan State University, but he's really known for his work as the men's basketball coach at Winston-Salem State. He is the first coach to lead an HBCU to an NCAA national championship, which he did in 1967. All right, next up, we have an interview with Florida A&M student Malik Burgess. He is interviewing Terry Lewis, I keep saying that, sorry, Terry Smith, who is a Howard University alumna, and she is actually the first African-American woman COO of the NFL Players Association. All right.
Good evening.
Welcome, guys.
Hello.
So I do have the pleasure of interviewing Miss Terry Smith tonight. She is a graduate of Howard University, and she did go to law school she went to Columbia Law School in New York. And as stated before, she is the first African-American woman COO of the NFLPA. I'm so excited to be able to interview you today and just pick your brain. So I do have a few questions for you to start off the interview. What made you decide to attend an HBCU? And also, just going a little bit deeper into the question, what made you choose Howard University specifically?
Well, great question, Malik, and thanks for having me. And I'm excited to be interviewed by you as well. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I don't know really how Charlotte is now, but back then it was majority white, which means I didn't see a lot of people who look like me. I think times have changed, so it might be better now. But in the early 90s, I wanted to go somewhere where I wasn't always the only one in the room. So I decided to pursue an HBCU education. Lots to choose from. You know, North Carolina has tons of them, might even have the most. Um, but I ultimately decided on Howard, mainly because of its rich history. I knew then I wanted to be a lawyer, and once I found out that Thurgood Marshall went there, that kind of put me over the edge for wanting to go. And plus, it was nice to visit a school that was in a big city. Charlotte, you know, is kind of a bigger deal now, but again, when I grew up there, it wasn't that big of a town.
Yeah.
It was accredited. Howard, I think, was the largest HBCU at the time. So all of it just kind of fell into place. And before I knew it, I was headed to DC.
And it sounded like it was a perfect match. You sound like you knew where you wanted to go before deciding.
Definitely.
So can you just go into a little bit into how your HBCU experience was? Were there any clubs or activities that you got into, or were involved in on campus that you would, kind of tell anybody that's listening to get involved in?
I don't know if there were clubs necessarily, but there were lots of places and lots of opportunities while I was at Howard that just really stick out in my mind. Sorry, my daughter just walked into the room. I wasn't expecting her. um, but my experience at Howard was one of the best of my life. It was nurturing. It was a place where we were able to build confidence and feel confident about, you know, what we had to offer and what we were gaining from the school. I did, now that I think about it, join some affinity groups. So I was in the North Carolina Club just because that seemed to make sense at the time. I
Yep.
later joined student government, and I was in high school too. So that was sort of a continuation of something I knew about. Um, I also was able to pledge. So I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So I was able to do that. So lots of terrific choices. Hey, 10, that contributed to my experience at an HBCU. I see why people record their interviews. Makes total sense.
She just wanted to get a little bit of shine. That's okay.
She likes a little camera time. That's what I think it is.
We all do. Wow, that's amazing. It seems like you were very involved on campus, just with SGA and in a sorority. That I think that's a great way to really get your name known on campus, as well as just meet people and make
Mhm.
friendships, lifelong friendships, really. So how do you think Howard University prepared you for life outside of school? I say that because HBCU, you learn many experiences. So can you just kind of go into how Howard University prepared you?
So I know the biggest thing, like I was saying before, is that they gave us the confidence, you know. If I had gone back to my Charlotte roots after going to Howard and being the only one in the room, I would have felt totally different about it. You know, now I knew I belonged in that room. So that was always a wonderful thing. And that's something that I had a chance to carry with me ever since my Howard experience. Um, but the School of Business in particular, Howard, had very high professionalism standards for freshman orientation, which was a seminar that we had to go to, you know, as you guessed, our freshman year. We had to wear suits, which we thought was the corniest, craziest thing ever. But I look back on the experience and I'm like, wow, because I've been places where I've seen people show up inappropriately dressed. I'm never going to
Mhm.
have that problem because, you know, even dealing with DC summers, you know, and early fall, you're in a super hot suit
Oh yeah.
trudging up to campus. So that was extra unfun, but taught me a lot. We had lots of seminars and education on timing, for instance. One of our senior leaders at the school used to tell us 15 minutes early is on time is late, and late should never happen. So if you were trying to be somewhere, you needed to be there at least 15 minutes early. As a result, every time I interviewed for a job after I left Howard, even when I was in law school, I would find myself sitting in a lobby like half an hour ahead of time. They were like, "Oh, what time is your appointment?" So I'm just like, it's better to be here than not. So,
It's so true, and it's
so
good habits to have.
yeah. So I don't know if I've kept it. I have been late a little bit later in life, but for interviews and work stuff, the Howard had me right on point.
Yes, ma'am. And just to add to your point, I know here at Florida A&M University at our business school, they do have the students dress up twice a week for forum. So all of you high schoolers out there looking to go into business, you better have that suit ready.
Yes, they will give you one if you don't have one. Like, it's not a joke.
Really. So my next question is, how did you transition in your career from college to elevate you to where you are now? I guess I will add college and law school as well into that.
I would say I could give you a pretty general answer there. I mean, just lots of hard work, um, and being proactive. I was usually never one to sort of sit back and let stuff happen to me. If I saw something that I wanted to pursue, then I would find a way to pursue it. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, so I literally opened the phone book in Charlotte. They used to have phone books back then, where you could actually look up places of business and just call them directly. So
I
I
remember
did
those.
that and I found some law firms that seemed interesting. And I asked, could I work there after school? They
Wow.
said, okay. All I did was filing, but it just gave me a chance to read a file or two and just kind of figure out what it was all about. So I've just always been that kind of person.
Yes, ma'am. And then my last question, one quick last question. This is going to be very straightforward. What are some of your biggest professional achievements that you would like to share?
Ooh, I mean, I think certainly that big obvious one that everybody loves. I was the first Black or female or both chief operating officer at the NFLPA, so that's exciting. Um, I've been there nearly 13 years, and one thing that just keeps me going back every day is the fact that we really get to impact the lives of players. We see them on TV, we see them working hard on the field, we see them get hurt, but you don't really know them until you've really just kind of worked for their rights, when you've tried to raise minimum salaries and make sure that their wages are where they should be. Just being able to improve their working conditions and putting faces and names to life is very, very rewarding. So I would add that to my list of professional achievements.
That's great. Well, I thank you so much, Miss Terry Smith, for sitting down with me tonight and having this interview with me. And I hope that you did give off very great gems that kids can use, or students that are applying to HBCU. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Good luck, Malik.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you,
You're
Malik,
welcome.
for joining us this evening and sharing your story. I'm always excited when I hear great things of HBCUs and blazing new trails for other people to follow. Knowing you personally, of course, and that you being a Howard alum makes it even better. And it's wonderful for young people to be able to hear that, again, you can go to an HBCU and you can go out and you can change the world. I think a lot of times people don't think of athletes as real people. They're on television. They live these fascinating lives. They're making lots of money, but they are actually people, and they need to be able to live and support themselves once they leave the football field. So it's great to have you doing it, and it's great again to see an HBCU alumna blazing new trails and providing opportunities for others that are coming afterwards. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
What is Grambling? Grambling is growing. It's a community. Grambling is an education, an experience. Grambling is legacy, tradition, and the future. What is Grambling? Grambling is all of this and more. Grambling is the place where everybody is someone.
Restream State University is a preeminent, career-focused, and trailblazing historically Black university in Missouri, serving students of diverse ethnicities and backgrounds who want a rich, innovative, and engaging academic experience. Students don't just come here for the academics. They come here for the dedicated faculty, career-focused academic programs, strategic STEM, business, academic, and community alliances, and excel in their careers. Restream State University. Change happens.
All right, so we just heard from Howard University alumna Terry Lewis. Terry Smith, I'm like stuck on Jimmy Jam. Terry Smith, who is the first woman, first African-American to lead this NFL Players Association. And she was interviewed by Florida A&M student Malik Burgess. So our next interview is supposed to be between Larry Lewis and Traylon, but Traylon has not, I think he's having a little issue. So we're going to jump to the next interview and then come back to Mr. Lewis and Mr. Rogers. They'll be next. So we have Malik actually doing 2 back-to-back interviews. His next interview, actually, Malik recorded last week with a gentleman named Carvish Jones, who graduated from Russ College. He is a sports editor working in Atlanta. I think he's covering the Atlanta Hawks this evening.
Mr. Jones, I have a few questions here for you today. So my first question is, what made you decide to attend an HBCU, and why Rush College?
I think the reason I attended Rush College because it was my way of giving back to my hometown of Holly Springs, Mississippi. Growing up in Holly Springs, the people loved me, and I love the people back, and just, it was just a great experience. And then just thinking about my high school years at Holly Springs High School, I was a member of the Marshall County Youth Leadership Program. I got a chance to meet 30 students from around the Marshall County, Mississippi area to talk about race relations and improve, unity in the community. And then I just wanted to go to Rush College just to continue my commitment to my hometown, my friends.
Sure. So you did touch on it a little bit, but what made you decide to attend an HBCU?
I love the HBCU family. My 2 oldest sisters attended HBCUs. My oldest sister went to Russ College, and my other sister attended Tennessee State University. And I have a host of aunts and uncles who went to HBCUs. So I just wanted to keep the family tradition alive.
Sure. So can you tell me a little bit about your HBCU experience? I would say mostly the good and the bad.
Wow, great question. I think, as I said earlier, as being a native of Holly Springs, Mississippi, attending Rush College was probably the best decision I ever made because I love Holly Springs and just getting a chance to know everyone in the Holly Springs community. And basically, I just love everything about my Rush College experience. And then since I graduated with a degree in mass communications and broadcast journalism, getting a chance to work at the college TV station and the radio station, everyone in Holly Springs knew me, probably through my association with my uncle, who was also a disc jockey in my hometown at a small radio station. So basically, I just loved everything about the Rush College experience. And then I graduated Rush College not once, but twice. In 1986, I graduated from the Rush College daycare class in 1986. So I've been around the Rush College family my whole life.
So how do you think Rush College prepared you for your first job out of college?
I was just thankful and blessed to be at the right place at the right time at Rush College because at the time I graduated in 2003, digital media was just beginning, and Rush College had the skills provided for me, such as nonlinear editing system like Final Cut Pro, and basically just prepared me because a lot of TV stations, after I graduated from Rush College, then had the technology. So got a chance to get my hands on the equipment once most stations, should I say the station I work for, started transitioning from tape to tape to digital editing. So it prepared me in a whole lot of ways, and I can't thank Rush College enough. But preparing me.
What are some challenges that you have had to overcome in this industry, in the sports industry?
Wow, great question. I think in 2008, when the station I work for now, Ballard Sports South and Ballard Sports Southeast, was transitioning from 4x3 format to high definition, because I think every station had to, go through high definition, and then just trying to convert the video from a 4x3 format to, high definition status. So it took some time. And then I think another one of the challenges I faced on a professional level, that one of the few Black people in my industry, in the office building. So sometimes the lack of diversity sometimes can be a little bit of challenge. And not to say that I enjoy, I love working with the people I work with, but sometimes if you want to talk about some issues and stuff, that may be tough to discuss some of those issues with people who don't look like you. And that's been one of the other challenges. But thankfully, I haven't had any problems with my coworkers, and they love working with me, and I love working with them. So I think that's been the biggest challenge so far in my professional career.
Yes, sir. How did you transition in your career from college to elevate you to where you are today?
Wow. Great question. I think after I graduated from Russ College, I got my first job 2 weeks after I graduated from college. So basically, I just got in the door, took advantage of the opportunity, got my feet wet, and just, learned about everything, whether it was from editing to, working cameras, and just cleaning up the studios and giving scripts to the, anchors and working master control, where I had to punch, commercials and stuff for local programs. So basically, I wasn't afraid to take on challenges when the opportunity presented itself for me. So I think that was probably one of the things that helped me out a whole lot, transitioning from college to working in the field of broadcasting.
So what advice do you have for college students who wish to pursue a similar career path?
Learn to do everything, especially with the media industry evolving around digital media. Just work on your writing skills, your editing skills. Also learn how to shoot, even now with, your iPhone. Learn how to use your iPhone and use that as an opportunity and, edit, from your iPhone, and then learn the latest technology and trends in the industry. I also recommend joining an organization like the National Association of Black Journalists or the Online News Association, where you get a chance to network with individuals in the field, and that can help prepare you get where you want to go, and hopefully, for college students, get scholarships and network with your fellow college students who probably want to, some of those students you probably want to end up working with at some point in your career if you decide to pursue a career in communications and broadcasting.
Yes, sir. A wise man once told me the best camera you have is the one on you. So what are some of your biggest professional achievements?
A whole lot. I think first off, winning my first Emmy Award back in 2020 stands out. And then another award that stands out, when I was awarded the Russ College Trailblazer Award, that was awarded by the Russ College Mass Communications Program in 2013. And I was also the recipient of the United Negro College Fund's Outstanding Young Alumnus Award in 2012 and 2013. For the fact that I won it in back-to-back years is still a surreal moment. And I'm just thankful and blessed that Russ College provided me with the opportunity to showcase my talent and skills to people around the world.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Jones. It was a pleasure speaking with you today.
Thank you.
All right, before we get into our next interview between Morehouse alumnus Larry Lewis and Dillard alum, who just recently graduated, Traylon Rogers, we're going to do another spotlight on an HBCU sports legend. Our HBCU sports legend right now that we're spotlighting now is Althea Gibson, who graduated from Florida A&M University. Althea Gibson is best known as a tennis player, although she also did play professional golf. She was the first African American to win a Grand Slam championship. So Mr. Lewis and Mr. Rogers, thank you for joining us this evening and being willing to talk and share some information and let everybody learn more about your HBCU experience.
Perfect. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, afternoon. Could you tell us just who you are?
This is Larry Lewis. I'm a graduate of Morehouse College. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, graduate of Morehouse College in '94. Had a beautiful experience there in Atlanta. Extended family there, and I love the experience.
What did you graduate with a degree in?
Marketing. Yes, I was a business administration major with a concentration in marketing.
All right. Could you tell us about why you chose Morehouse out of all of the schools? I mean, specifically HBCUs in the larger university community. Why you chose Morehouse?
I didn't really apply to too many. It was between Morehouse and Howard. So I think that my mom went to university and my dad went to Howard. Oh, is this? Can you hear me okay, Traylon?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So my mom went to Tuskegee University and my dad went to Howard. And at the end of the day, we just decided that Morehouse would probably be a better fit.
And are you originally from that region, the Greater Atlanta region?
And no, I'm from Los Angeles, but my mom was born and raised in Tuskegee, Alabama. My dad was born and raised in Columbus, Mississippi.
So that's a transition to go from California to Atlanta. Could you tell us about that and how that added into your HBCU experience?
Well, my mom being from Tuskegee, we go to Tuskegee every summer. So I was very, very familiar with the South. And you know, the experience of going there every summer really exposed me to the South, and a lot of relatives were still down there, so I was very familiar. It was almost like a second home.
Okay, so I'm a recent graduate of Dillard, and I can vividly remember my first semester at Dillard. And I'm sure I probably will not ever forget it. So could you tell us about your experience? I mean, day one or first semester at Morehouse. I mean, what did you feel? What was it like?
The dorm life was different for me. Being around all these brothers. Morehouse is an all young man school, and Spelman is the all female school across the street. So being in the dorms and living on campus and eating in the cafeteria, that was all different. Being around so many progressive young men was an eye-opener and a beautiful experience as well. Mostly everybody comes from good families, and everyone's ambitious and has the desire to be something in life on a very professional level. Doctors, lawyers, engineers, whatever it may be. I myself graduated as a professional athlete, so all walks of life was the exposure there, and it was really great to see. It was eye-opening and a lot of fun as well.
You just mentioned being graduated as a professional athlete. What was that like? How did that feel in terms of, you know, you just mentioned all these other, you know, folks who went to be lawyers, teachers, doctors, etc. I mean, here you are having a once in a lifetime opportunity to be a professional athlete. What was that like for you?
Well, it was different because when I graduated high school, I was 6'3", very thin, wasn't really recruited. And I went to, I spent my freshman, sophomore year without playing basketball, but I also grew 4 inches. So I walked on my junior year and then played on the team and then played professionally and then came back and finished school. So that was totally different, being able to play basketball, especially as a freshman, thinking that my basketball career was over. So, yeah, I was able to walk on and earn a scholarship, and then played 19 years professionally after that. So that was different.
What was the professional experience like? The 19 years of professional basketball.
I played overseas, 10 years in Spain, 5 in Japan. I played in Cyprus and Argentina as well. I started off in the Dominican Republic. So I actually went to the Dominican Republic, then went back and graduated Morehouse. And then I played in Argentina and Cyprus and Japan, Spain, and finished in Argentina for the second time my last year playing. It was 2010, 2011 season. And that was really good. I had some NBA tryouts, but it seemed like my blessing in the sport was overseas. So instead of kind of risking risking my opportunity overseas, I just committed to that and stayed committed to that throughout my career. So I played till I got home about 1 to 2 weeks before my 40th birthday. So I played till I was almost 40.
Okay. And how do you feel that Morehouse prepared you to be, successful in your career as an athlete?
Definitely, because the principles that are taught, the habits that I developed, the discipline. I learned a lot of discipline from my parents. Being at Morehouse and being around the progressive young men there and the environment, there's a level of competition that's there amongst the students, but not really trying to outdo each other. Everyone's just really trying to do the best they can to get to the next version of themselves, whether it's going into business or being a doctor or whatever it is. That mindset is what was very contagious on campus at Morehouse, and I think that helped out a lot.
So I want to talk now about, so you talked about how you went to Morehouse, played, came back, played again until 2011. Did you end it there in terms of your athletic career, or did you continue to move forward? What do you do now?
Well, then I started coaching. So early in my career, I played for a coach named Eric Musselman. He's with Arkansas right now. And when I retired, he was the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers G League team. So I called him, and a position was created there for me. And I worked with the G League team for 2 years. And then I worked with the Los Angeles Lakers NBA team, basically for Kobe's last 3 years. And then coached with the Sacramento Kings for 3 years after that. And for the past 3 years, I've been with UC Santa Fe. Basketball has been a part of professional life in a big way. From playing, then to coaching, I really learned a lot. And being around and getting to know and coaching Kobe was a really, really big highlight, apart from being a professional basketball player. Being a professional basketball player is pretty much unmatched, especially when you graduate high school and you thought that your playing career was over and you're able to play that long. That's pretty high up there. But then being around a superstar like Kobe and learning a lot and seeing how he does things, and being around, the championship vibe is a highlight as well.
And finally, just one last question. Could you give some advice to someone who is at an HBCU now, who might want to pursue the career that, go down the same career path as you? What would you tell them?
First of all, you never know what's around the corner, so don't stop. The second thing I would say is always prepare to do what you dream to do. I tell our kids all the time that the glory is in the preparation. And as long as you do that, you dedicate yourself to yourself and give yourself a chance to prepare to go after what you want, usually good things will happen. And it takes discipline, it takes energy, it takes focus, it takes sacrifice. And that's what builds a mindset of a winner.
Well, Mr. Lewis, I really appreciate chatting with you today, and I'm sure everybody who's watching appreciates the sage advice, especially from somebody who's done the kind of work that you've done and had the kind of career that you've had. I'm sure Morehouse is glad to have you as an alumnus.
And thank you, Traylon, and I'm sure you'll be doing big things in your career. I understand you're in law school, so congratulations to you, and you keep rocking.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Okay, champion. Talk soon.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Larry, I wrote down that quote, always prepared to do the thing you dream to do. It's excellent advice. I'm going to be reminding my own children of that repeatedly so as they move forward in whatever it is that they're trying to do. And Traylon, again, thank you for joining us and stepping in and doing this interview. And I certainly wish you the best and plan on seeing, again, great things coming from you as well. You both have a great evening.
I think we hear a delay. Okay.
The heartbeat of Texas Southern University is found in the students who walk our campus. It's found in the faculty who bring education to life, ideas into action, and dreams into reality. And in the rich history and tradition of almost a century of changing lives and the world. And so, we've got oceans of that.
You do.
Our third HBCU Sports Legend Spotlight is on Earl Lloyd. Perfect, coming right after Mr. Lewis. Earl Lloyd was a West Virginia State University alumnus. On October 31st, 1950, Earl Lloyd became the first African American to play in an NBA game. So next up, we're going to have a little conversation discussing programs and going to college if you have a student or if you are a student that has some learning challenges. We know a lot of students have difficulty sometimes growing up in high school. They might be diagnosed with a learning disability. And so a lot of times people might think that college is not an option. Well, obviously that is certainly not the case. There are plenty of people who have attended college and graduated from college who have a learning disability. And so we're going to talk to Dr. Kevin Williams, who is a graduate of Florida A&M University. And as you heard when I introduced him, he is Dr. Kevin Williams. So that lets you know that all things are possible, even with a learning challenge. So he's going to talk about his experience at Florida A&M University.
Stillman's been doing a lot to make changes, and I feel this is a great place to re-enroll. UA
as huge as it was, that with my autism, I feel like it overwhelmed me. But with Stillman, it's more compact, and I feel that's a big improvement. It's much easier for me to settle in.
They came to us and said, can we take classes here? And we said, absolutely. We would love to have you. The thing that I think has prepared me most to work with arts and autism has been arts and autism, is because I know that I have a support system. So if there's anything that I'm curious about or that I'm worried about or that I just want to talk more about or get more information, I have resources at Arts and Autism, and they will throw the doors wide open and make anything happen.
That's how I got started with Arts and Autism. It showed me how many possibilities that I am able to achieve, and learning how to make new friends and getting to learn about different arts people make and how they make it out of clay.
What has your experience been at Stillman?
I'd say it's been a pretty fruitful experience. It's given me more options in terms of, what I like and don't like, and those things that I didn't really know so much about.
How has this program, Arts and Autism, how has that impacted your life?
Oh, well, I probably had some emotional issues, but I got some stuff to make sure that I don't have that anymore.
Me as a 31-year-old who's dropped out and had to leave UA, but Stillman here is like, hey, we'll give you another shot. Why not? I feel like that only encourages more people like me to try, because it happens to a lot of autistic children that they'll get out, they'll find their independence, but then they'll get overwhelmed because they don't have that support system. But with this, it shows that you do have a support system, and that can help so much, and it won't discourage so many kids on the spectrum to not try. But this shows that it can work, and that's why I'm fully behind it, and I believe that it'll only continue to grow.
All right, well, welcome, Dr. Williams. I'm going to let you really jump in and tell us your story. Give us your background information, how you ended up at Florida A&M, why you selected it, and then how you believe it was able to support you. And then we'll close out with a little advice for students and parents, students who have learning disabilities, or parents of students who have learning disabilities or learning challenges that will need support when they get to college.
Okay. Well, I came from a family of tradition in terms of attending HBCUs. My grandfather taught at Morehouse for over 40 years, and my grandmother taught at Spelman for over 20 years. So I always kind of kept in the back of my mind, and my dad and all the men in my family went to Morehouse. So I kind of grew up on Morehouse campus with my family. Going to games and just attending things at Morehouse. So I always kind of had, going to Morehouse on my mind. However, when I was diagnosed with 3 learning disabilities pretty early on in my K-12 experience, I started to look at opportunities. I knew I wanted to go to a HBCU because of the tradition, but I didn't see the resources that I needed at the time at Morehouse, because I did a social studies project in like 8th or 9th grade, and I did my project on what HBCUs actually had good centers to work with people with learning disabilities at that time. And Florida A&M ended up being one of the top programs, not only at a HBCU, but in college, on the college campus, period. So I kind of did that project and kind of kept that in the back of my mind. I also was playing baseball, and at the time, FAM had a real good baseball team. I ended up playing just a semester at FAM in baseball, but that was another thing that I looked at. So I broke the 60-year tradition at Morehouse to attend FAMU's program. I kind of observed how Enid Cosby struggle at Morehouse in that particular area. So I just wanted to go to FAM for that. At the time, it was called the Learning Development Evaluation Center. And like I said, it was really popular in terms of its achievement working with people with learning disabilities. So that's how I ended up at FAMU.
All right.
And so, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you know, once you got to campus, what are the things that you need to make sure? What are the things you looked out for and did? And what do you think people need to make sure they're doing when they get to campus?
Well, it's important to learn how you learn. And that's for anybody, with even if you don't have a disability. But it's definitely really important for students with disabilities, because you're going to need to know what your accommodations need to be and what kind of time frame you need to allow yourself to work with your accommodations and to be organized and to work on your work. One of the things with my story is I was ashamed of my learning disability before I attended FAMU. In fact, I told my best friend on graduation day at my high school, at Benjamin Mays High School in Atlanta. I told him, he's the only person I told him the last, when we were graduating, basically. He couldn't believe it. And what really made FAM's program so great was that they taught you how to advocate for yourself, and they taught you how to not be ashamed of any learning challenges you had. So we actually even had a club inside of the center that would, you know, teach you how to advocate, because, you know, you eventually, when you graduate, you need to be able to talk to your employers, and because, you know, your disability doesn't go away. You just kind of learn, you know, you learn how to what accommodations you need, and how do you need to work to be successful with your disability. So that was a critical thing, was being able to not feel ashamed about it. And you know, because I was acting out in high school because I didn't want anybody to know, you know, about my disability. So FAM, you know, taught me that I could fly, and that I could do it with whatever I put my heart and mind to, despite having 3 learning disabilities.
I love it. I love it. That's what we want to hear. You know, every parent wants to find the right fit for their child when they're going off to college. And of course, every student wants to find the right place for them. And it sounds like Florida A&M was definitely that for you. What advice do you have for parents and young people when they're in this process of identifying a college? If they have a learning challenge, they have an IEP or a 504 plan, what type of advice do you provide? What do you recommend they do?
I would recommend definitely making sure that all your testing is current, meaning that, you know, you make sure that you fit the criteria to receive accommodations. And I think it's good to look for a program that does its own testing as well. One thing that's very unique about FAM's program, for example, is they have a summer program where you can be admitted in the summer, and you attend the summer program, and you kind of learn your way around campus, and you kind of start practicing and learning your accommodations and what you're going to need. They do some testing. So I think testing is very important. Being at an institution that does do testing, and also finding what the track record is with that center, with working with other units of the university, because that's really important. And from the top at FAMU, they have an annual award ceremony. The name of the center now at FAMU is called the CEDAR, which is Center for Disabilities Access and Resources. They actually have a CEDAR Honors Award every year, and the president of the university attends that, and they give awards to people that are advocates and work really well on campus with the Disability Center. I think that's critical, is the relationship of the center with other academic units. So inquiring about what that is like, you know, because you need to have professors that are willing to, you know, I mean, of course it's the law, but you also want, willing professors to work with the person learning challenges.
So I'm listening to you. I'm a former educator. I'm a parent. The advice you just gave is extremely critical. I hope as people not only are watching now, but when they watch it again on YouTube, that they pay attention to what you said, because navigating the process is not always easy. Making sure children are tested in a timely manner, knowing how to make sure that they have the accommodations in place once they get on campus. And as you mentioned, if there's a possibility for them to attend the college during the summer just to get started and get acclimated to everything. All of those are great points, things that people need to know and pay attention to. I thank you for sharing your story with us, Dr. Williams. And again, I say that again for everyone, Dr. Williams, because a learning disability does not mean that you cannot accomplish whatever it is you set out to accomplish. You just have to know how to manage and how to navigate the system as he learned how to do. So thank you for sharing that. We'll be in touch and talking. And obviously, for those of you who are listening, Florida A&M sounds like it has a great program that you might want to check out. Have a great evening. I keep striking.
Yes. Please check it out. We have a mentor program and everything in place with it, and so with alums that finish the center.
All right. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Have a good evening.
We're not braggers at Paul Quinn College. If I were going to brag, I'd have to talk to you about what we've done the last 15 months. I'd have to tell you about how we finished the first 2 new buildings on our campus in the last 50 years. I'd probably have to tell you about the 4 new academic disciplines that we've added. The banking and finance major, whose goal is to make sure all our students graduate economically sustainable. I'd probably have to talk to you about the Dallas Mavericks major that we created. Might even have to tell you about the Lowe's retail management major. I might even have to brag a little bit about how we formed a partnership with Bishop T.D. Jakes and created the Bishop T.D. Jakes Executive MBA program. But bragging is so distasteful. I mean, I'd rather just tell you about the partnership we struck with the Dallas Independent School District and KIPP Charter Network to open up 2 brand new schools on our campus this fall. One is going to be the Dr. Frederick Douglass Haynes III Global Academy at Paul Quinn College, which will be an international baccalaureate school. The other is the KIPP Oak Cliff School, which is going to be pre-K through 12. Those are things that we're really excited about. I guess we could tell you about all the infrastructure improvements that we made, the new roads, the new signs, how we cleared out a whole section of the campus to create the first ever Quinite walking trail, a 1.5-mile loop that will give people sort of peace of mind as they walk through. We could talk about the fact that the new buildings are a new residence hall that has room for 135 incredibly and gifted students. We could talk about the fact that we have a brand new athletic facility that seats 1,200 students, that has a state-of-the-art weight room or the dance studio or the classroom. We could talk about all of that, but why don't we just talk about what really, really matters? We are your school, and we are just warming up.
All right, so our final interview of the evening is with Rachel Williams, who is a journalism student at Norfolk State University, and she is going to be talking with Eris Thomas, who is a graduate of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. She is currently the Sports Information Director at Winston-Salem State University, She is the first woman, I believe, to hold this position, not just first African American woman, but the first woman, period, to serve as the sports information director at Winston-Salem State. So just like Terry Smith, she is another trailblazer. So we're excited to have her on to talk about what she does and her path there. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. And I'm excited for Eris, for you to tell everyone your story. I know you're like me, you love your HBCUs, and the path that you travel is unique, and it's a career path that a lot of people may not even be aware of, that's available to them if they love sports. So I'm excited to have everybody hear about it.
Thank you.
Hi,
I'm excited
Eris.
to be here. Hi, Rachel. How are you?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm great. Happy
it's
Friday.
So nice to be talking to a trailblazer. Like, what? You're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me, your experience at UMES, and tell me how you started your career as a sports information director.
Yeah, so I am a 2013 graduate of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, Hawk Pride, and I majored in kinesiology, but I didn't quite want to go the path of physical training or owning my own health, fitness, or of that nature. So my sophomore, junior year, I reached out to the SID, Stan Bradley, and asked him if I could shadow him during the summer. And that summer position turned into me being their student assistant for media relations and marketing. And then I was also the baseball manager. So I was doing everything in that department, and I really just enjoyed it and stuck with it. Upon graduating, because I graduated in the winter, I had got a internship with the MEAC, Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, as their sports information student intern. And that was just for a semester. So I did that from January to May of 2014. They reached out and said they wanted to hire me for a position that they had created. So I ended up moving to Norfolk summer 2014, worked with the MEAC for a year and a half before I actually went back to UMES in 2015, 15, as their marketing director. Also a position that I created because they didn't really actually have a particular person just to do marketing. I still wanted to do SID stuff, but I wanted to be more involved with their creativity and social media presence. And also during that year, we rebranded. So we redesigned our website, had to change a lot of Twitter names, but it was definitely some fun times. Left there, went to Towson. So I went back home and I was at Towson for 3 years. And then recently left Towson, was at Coppin. And I was only at Coppin for maybe 2 months. I call it the longest 2 months, though, because it was the non-conference season for basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, the men's basketball team had the most games for NCAA Division I program. So it was busy timing. And then I am now at Winston-Salem. I started in January, and it's been a fun 7 weeks, to say the least. We just got back from the CIAA basketball tournament. So yeah, it's been an ongoing train.
Yeah, you've had a lot of opportunities and internships, is what it sounds like. I know you said you got your degree in kinesiology, so you have your master's degree, correct?
I don't have my master's.
Okay, I don't know why I thought you had, I could have sworn you had your master's. But anyways, I'm about to say, so it's really good that you were, even though you didn't get your degree in the sports information stuff, all the internships and stuff really helped build and pave a way into your career and stuff. So that's great. But so have you always wanted to go to an HBCU, or how did you come about going to UMES?
Definitely. I always joke I am a product of HBCU schools, and I used to say the MEAC. Can't quite say it now with A&T constantly switching. But my grandmother graduated from North Carolina A&T. My parents and my sister went to Morgan State. So I was the lone hawk.
It's in your blood.
I wanted to leave Baltimore. Yeah, I wanted to leave Baltimore, but I didn't want to go too far. And UMES was perfect. It was a home away from home. My roommates are great. My roommate was from Atlanta. Yeah, I had a lot of roommates, but it was just a really great, different experience. I'm not sure if you've been to Princess Anne, but the school is Princess Anne. So
Well, yeah, I played volleyball at Norfolk State, so we've been there, and I was just like, is this all that's here? Is this it?
yeah, the middle of nowhere. But I liked it. I made it like the best experience. Outside of working in the athletic department, I started a couple of organizations. I was on the starting chapter of the National Society of Leadership and Success. So I was very involved. And that's what you have to do in college. You have to be
Yeah.
involved to make it what you want it to be.
For sure. So what are because I feel like you've had kind of a long career already and you're so young, but like, what are your like biggest professional achievements that you've had?
So definitely in 2019, I was at Towson, which is a PWI, and I was the COSIDA inclusion grant winner. It was 6 up, so I was one of 6. And I got to go to the convention in Florida. And then I also got to go to the NCAA headquarters in Indianapolis that summer. And honestly, that was the most amazing experience both times. Because COSIDA, you could network. I got to meet everybody from the D1 level down to D3. And then just the people that I met that were also COSIDA winners, I talked to them almost every week. So, and we were from all over. One of my closest friends, Taylor, she lives in California. So I always laugh like, wait, this is a time difference. I'm not going to text you at 8 a.m. my time and you're still asleep. So we always joke about that. But that was definitely one of my biggest moments because I really got to feel like I put my foot down and people got to see who I am.
That's awesome.
Because SIDs, we like being behind the scene.
Yeah, for sure.
As much as possible.
I don't know how you do it. That's a lot of stat keeping. That's a lot of knowing about the sport. I obviously know about literally track, basketball, and volleyball, and then maybe football. That's really about it. Like, how do you know all about all these sports? Like, is there like a training you have to go through, or you just like grew up around sports? Tell me about that, please, because I'm interested and I want to know.
Yeah, definitely grew up around it. I played soccer for 15 years. And then honestly just shadowing people. So like UMES did not have a football program. And my senior year, I did an internship at Morgan State. So I got to work with their football team, their cheerleaders, and bowling. And so of course we had bowling, but just working with that football team alone helped figure stuff out with different things that I wanted to do. And then for the sports I don't know, honestly, I just learn and I YouTube a lot. I Google things. I watch ESPN, and sports has literally been my life since I was 2. Like that's all me and my dad talk about. We sit, when I'm home and watch sports. I do that now with my grandmother. If we actually had to mute the TV, we had the game on. But yeah, if it's something I don't know, I just ask.
So I know you said that sports has been a part of your life since you were 2. So do you have you've already reached one milestone. You're the first woman to be in the SID role at the school you're at now. So what are some more goals that you have for yourself in your career?
Honestly, I just take it all in stride. It was funny because I was actually working a basketball game and our reporter, John Dell, was the one who told me. I didn't even know. And when he told me, I was like, really? And my supervisor was like, congratulations. And it didn't hit me until later that night, wow, I'm the first of something. So I went home and told my grandmother, told my parents. And of course we had to, fact check it, which we did. And it was really humbling. I take it all in stride.
That's awesome.
And I like giving back.
Yeah, right. I did a little stuff with an SID too. It wasn't my favorite thing ever. I'm not going to lie. I did a little bit of shadowing myself and it's a lot. So I praise you for what you do. You do a pretty good job. It's a lot of work. But I do want to ask one last question before we wrap up. I just want to know what advice or recommendations do you give any college students who are going to an HBCU?
Definitely look into internships. Don't wait till your senior year to try to find things. If you know what you want to do, reach out to those different people in different departments to try to get your foot in the door. And it doesn't always have to be at your school. You can reach out to other schools. Like I said, I reached out to people at Morgan and built and created a great relationship that I still have with both of those SIDs to this day. But definitely don't wait to the last minute to do stuff. If you want to be an SID, reach out to the SID at your school, reach out to your athletic director, your trainers, and shadow them. I'm pretty sure every department will say yes. No one will turn you away. Like right now, I have 12 interns. So,
oh gosh.
Yeah. So definitely reach out if it's a great learning experience and you want to be involved. That way, when you graduate, you can look back at your resume and say, wow, this is what I did, and this is what I can do, and this is what I'm going to do. And it's always a great feeling.
That's great. That is some amazing advice that you give out. I hope if anyone's listening who's a HBCU student that they take that advice and actually use it, because it will help them later on in their career. But it's been so awesome to talk to you. I really appreciate talking to you. I wish you a long, happy, and successful career.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you, Eris and Rachel. That was great. Excellent advice, of course. And Eris, I'm sitting here listening to you. You're talking about Googling and get more information and YouTube and fact checking. And I was like, she sounds like me. I'm not a sports person, but that is so me. I'm always looking up information, Googling, trying to find out stuff. I'm on YouTube trying to figure out how to do things. And then it drives my husband crazy, but I fact check everything because I want to make sure.
It's good to fact check.
I'm big on fact checking because I want to make sure if I'm putting out any information that it's accurate information, and so that I become the source. If I'm promoting HBCUs, I want to make sure the information that I'm giving out there, people know that it's reliable, that they can trust the information that I'm sharing with them. So it's very important to do that. But yeah, Eris, thank you for joining us. Trailblazer. I'm sure this is not going to be the last thing we hear about you doing. That's something unique, original. You know, you're the first person to do it. So thank you for sharing your story with us. Rachel, thank you for being with us throughout this week and joining in and talking to people throughout the week. Don't forget to give me your story so that we can share it with everybody next week as well.
Okay, I will.
All right. So our final trailblazer that we are going to highlight, our HBCU sports legend, and of course we had a couple on this evening, but we have Alice Coachman, who attended Tuskegee University and Albany State University. She was the first African-American woman to win a gold medal in the high jump. She did that in the 1948, gold medal in the Olympics. She did that in the 1948 Olympics, and her medal is in the high jump. So thank you everyone for joining us for this first HBCU 107 week. We plan to do it again in the fall so we can catch those of you who are going to be seniors in high school in 2023, graduating, getting ready to get your college applications in, learning more information. Be sure to follow the 107 on social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Check us out on YouTube. All of these videos will be loaded on YouTube. And then visit the website. You can, a couple of website URLs you can use, but the 107hbcu.org will take you to the 107's website. There's lots of information on there that you can learn about. First and foremost, we have a database. It's an original database where you can find any academic program offered by any HBCU. So if you want to major in kinesiology, you want to major in education, history, whatever it is you want to study, you can find out what HBCU offers that program. Additionally, there are special features on the website that talk about different programs that are available that you can learn more about the school so that hopefully you can find the right for you, because there is an HBCU for you. I am convinced of it. That is why my resources are there to help guide you through this process. Everyone have a great evening. And again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us this week for HBCU 107 week.